Okay. Good to go. Well, good evening and welcome to the special session of council to deal with the operating budget. It is Tuesday, January the 6th, 2026, 6:30 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. I'll remind members of any disclosures of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. See none noted. We're going to move right into section 3, reports to council, and report TR 0126 by Lauren James, the treasurer, regarding the 2026-2027 operating budget draft. Mr. James, the floor is yours.
Good evening, your worship, members of council. Before you is our 2026-2027 operating draft budget. The last financial report that council received was the quarterly report in Q3. Just so council is aware, the actual numbers used for 2025 are 11 months trailing.
Right.
When we come back with the control bylaw in the spring, it will have the year-end closed numbers that are year-ended and audited. So first off, let's just start off where we're at. Originally, council directed to have a budget levy increase of 1.9. Unfortunately, this draft does not incorporate that, but staff have options for budget reductions and reducing, getting closer to the original budget draft target. Right now, the draft stands at 5.02 on the notional levy of the 2025 tax levy, which is $336,888. What does that mean for an average resident? On a 250 assessed house is $62.66. On a $400,000 assessed farm, $23.06. And commercial on 250, $102.60. And industrial on 250K assessed, $139.43. That is the relation to what their 2025 tax bill would have been on similar assessment. Again, this budget incorporates the standard factors that we've done in prior years. One, which is factoring energy, currency, and inflation increase at 2.2, which is the most recent trailing inflationary data in the last October stats can for Ontario.
Hold for just a second.
Yeah.
See if we can get Councilor Prose online with us. Texting like no. Okay. All right, please, Lauren, carry on.
It factors in the capital program funding increase of 10% and insurance premium spikes of 5%. And additionally, it also factors in the 2026 pay increase for the QP local operators, which was 2.75, and the OPP cost increase 11%. Just to remind council that in 2025, we actually saw a reduction in the OPP because we received a one-time provincial rebate. That was a gift from the province. Unfortunately, that helped us in last year's budget, but that gift's not here, and that number really represents the rebate plus 4%. To get council's goal of having a 1.9 staff in the report, gave a few budget options for budget cuts. Each of them come with consideration and items. I'll just get kind of a high level. Obviously, the tree program we've used for a number of years, really small impact. We have discussed before in the past temporary closure museum. That is not a recommendation from staff. We recently received the enabling accessibility grant for the museum, as well as we have future grant applications for the museum. And we've already made applications for the museum students as well. So that is not a staff recommendation. That is just a non-discretionary expense that could be at council's purview. Obviously, municipal assistance has been discussed before for reductions, cuts, or pauses for the year, as well as some of the boards have discussed having reduced cemetery cuts that are managed by the municipality, not by the boards themselves. Outside of that, other options can be one-time use of the rate stabilization reserve. That is at council's discretion. If council wanted to, ideal number would be right around 73,210. That would bring the notional tax levy impact down to 3.9, and to a resident, it would be 2% on last year's tax rates. Some of the main drivers that still continue to be headward tails to our operating budget. We're still going through the provincial and federal fallout of COVID-19 pandemic. We're also now seeing the fallout of current trade escalation with the United States and Canada, our rebalancing of federally of commitments having to do with more funding for NATO, and reduced transfers and other discretionary money federally as well as provincially as they get closer to balancing and also reallocating their annual budgets. As council is aware, MPAC is still sitting on the 2016 assessment. There is thought through the municipal finance community that eventually they will resume the assessment in 27. MPAC has advised to many municipal financial people, as well as at the recent MFOA conference in Niagara Falls, that they have the data ready. They're looking for discretion from the province, which the next time would be coming in the March budget read. And so also this year, I have to give kudos to our local area MPP, Bobby Ann Brady. The last couple of years at Roma, she has been aggressively lobbying for restoring the OMPF, or the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund. So I'd like to thank MPP Brady for her excellent work. She is the MPP over in Hull and Norfolk, but she has helped us pass in the Elgin Middlesex, and staff and council are grateful for being an ally and a supporter. So we've actually seen 2 straight years of improved OMPF allocations. Prior to that, we were continually getting anywhere between 5 to 10% annualized cuts. That kind of funding is important for us because we have 78% of our tax base and land is rural. So it does weigh on our weighting heavily. And obviously, as I mentioned, we're currently going through a fair amount of foreign exchange, financial market uncertainty, and trade certainty.
There, okay.
Good evening, Councillor Froese. Can you hear us? You're muted.
Yes, sir. Loud and clear. Thank you.
Good to have you, Councillor Froese.
Thank you.
As noted, with the current financial markets and the trade uncertainty, our area is basically an automotive banana belt. A lot of our industry related jobs are either connected to automotive, industrial, or agricultural trade. And as council is aware, the Kuzma review is up for review middle of 2026. Going to put a lot of pressure on job creators in our area, as well as people that are working in those supporting industries, as well as pressure on the Canadian dollar, as well as export trade. So we could see some fluctuations both in short-term layoffs in the community, as well as material cost increases from additional procurement costs, as well as any duties, tariffs that could be levied by having to go through US distribution versus Canadian distribution. Couple notes: on June the 5th, council passed the budget schedule document, which basically outlined how we governed this budget this past year. So we started the public consultation back in April, ended in September 30th. Then on November 4th, we did the 10-year capital. Tonight, we're having the operating budget special, and then depending if council passes the budget tonight, we'll have the budget open house on January the 15th, next Thursday. Budget has been posted on our website. We've had it open for comment. We consolidated all the comment up until this morning, and we have reviewed the budget to make sure it falls within our strategic plan, as well as our quality of life initiatives. We can get into the body of the report, but I'll let the CAO speak to the overall, the hierarchy of the budget for this year for council.
Thank you, Lauren. So standard process, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through some of the operating budget resolutions that are incorporated within this draft operating budget and some of the correspondence we received from members of the public during our consultation. So first operating budget resolution was from June 5th of this year, or 2025 rather, just identifying what the schedule is for the budget. So obviously we are here at the operating budget meeting on January the 6th. October the 9th, we had a special meeting for the SCC where we passed a resolution in regards to moving forward with the tendered expansion. So there are operating budget implications there. October 16th, That was when council directed the 1.9% on the budget levy as a target. Obviously, we are above that because of some pressures that have come to the fore since that point. We will further discuss some ways to alleviate that as we get a bit later into the discussion. November the 6th, 2025. So council approved a $250 allotment towards the photography contest, as it was a success in 2025. So this is incorporated within the tourism budget. And November the 20th, 2025 was the paid parking report presented by our bylaw enforcement officer. And it was referred to this meeting in regards to any further discussion about accessing IO debt, and if there are any implications at that time. But since it is very much a revenue serviced debt, there's likely not going to be any significant impact. But that is something that we can discuss when we get into the tourism component of this budget. In regards to the consultation, we had 3 sets of comments received for operating. So we comment about allocating funds for tourism. So advertising in particular is an allocation that we carry year over year to the tune of approximately $4,200. Council may direct an increase to this line item. Paid parking. So this comment obviously came in before paid parking was approved. So just to reiterate that the paid parking program was implemented, was deemed to be a success, and council did establish it once again for 2026. The comment came in from Mr. Klein about significantly raising the cost of building permits. So building permits are established through the rates and fees bylaw. Council did not opt to increase the building fees in this year's rates and fees. Staff have identified no need to review at this time because generally speaking, the building budget and fees are tied to one another and should only cover operations and a little bit into reserve. They're not meant to be a significant revenue generation center for the municipality. And the comment was received from Laura Edwards in regards to potentially using some funds from the Vienna Community Infrastructure Reserve Fund for repairs at the Vienna Community Park, pertaining to things like the multi-use court. The comment worth noting here is that maintenance is covered in the budget under building equipment and or grounds maintenance in the respective line item. This sort of item would not generally be covered by reserve, and the intent of this reserve fund is to be for long-term capital. So using it for maintenance would not be proper. Those are the comments and the resolutions for the operating budget, Mr. Mayor. And if there's no questions or comments on any of those, I would pass it back to the treasurer to present the budget document.
All right, thank you, Thomas. And I'm going to stop right there and ask council members if you have any questions thus far, particularly on the comments and or. Okay. Moving forward then. Lauren, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We can move to page 10, which is the schedule for the summary of revenues. Basically, it just shows that for 2026 budget, that we will have an 18,477,000 total revenue budget for the year, both operating and capital revenue. A third of that is related to the capital program revenue coming in, federal grants, transfers, as well as gas tax and OSIP. Which means we have a corresponding expenditure budget of 18.4 million.
Okay. Before we go into that, are there any questions that anyone has on the revenue side? I have one. Police services. There's a $12,000 expectation in the budget. Kind of give us a highlight of what it is that you're looking for from there.
So the last couple of years, we've received the county POA late.
Yep.
And we've averaged between 10 to 12.
That's where the POA comes in.
We no
Okay.
longer receive the cannabis fund that we one time got. We used to get that money in that department, Your Worship, and council.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Can you just break down the tourism umbrella? What is included in that? Because it fluctuates and then there's a significant increase. So I just want to just break that down.
Tourism represents the beach paid parking.
Yeah.
Which is the past council resolution for keeping the $18 plus the cost recoveries. In addition, there is the one student grant that comes in there, as well as the beach rental for the food vendor as well.
Mm.
The spike of the 58,000
Mhm.
relates to paid parking. Right.
Okay. Thank you.
And just so council's aware, the line item for revenue that year, this year of 11 months trailing was 129, and staff are projecting 143. And that basically represents the cost recovery of the additional fees that was added on top of the $18. So the chargeback as well as the additional HST.
Any additional questions on revenue? Okay, thank you. Lauren? So the-
So matching on the expenditure side, we have a corresponding 18.4 expenditure. Basically, the biggest driver here is you're gonna see capital budget at 9.1 million for expenditures. And the rest is just anomalies. If you're looking at the tourism, it's higher there because you had the reserve transfer going out to the beach tourism account that was established.
Mhm.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah. It's good. Separated.
The council's ready, we can move into and obviously the summary of net revenue just shows which departments are an operating loss and which ones are an operating profit and which ones are cost neutral. So if there's any departments in there, council has a question of how their projected 2026 performances, we can talk about those on the aggregate.
Have we got Councilor Emerson up yet, or? Yeah. You want us to pause for a minute? Shoot. Okay, let's pause for a minute here while we can see if we can get Councilor Emerson's. Off at
The net revenue summary expenditure page.
it won't load. That's all right, I've been through it. There we go. Okay, the net revenue expenditure. Has anyone got any questions or anything that they want to draw attention to there? Essentially, it's the first two schedules combined.
Sorry, I have one.
Yep, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a clarification on municipal drainage. Is it being rolled into a different reserve now? Or
Here the mayor, the deputy mayor.
there's a loss there, but I'm just trying to figure it out.
We get a supervisor grant that is up to a maximum of $11,000 capped at a master. So
Ah,
that pays a portion of Steve's time up to a cap, which is labor as well as a maximum of 30% of benefit charge. We have to provide them a work log of preventive, active, reactive, as well as operating procedures that we're doing. That only relates to the operating side of drainage. So the corresponding expenditure is when Steve has expenditures. If a drain has a specific expenses, then they get expense to that drain and then billed out to the benefiting landowners, which could be either county, municipal, or landowners. And that's set based on the drainage assessment and the benefit act for each of the respective drains. And who is on that side of the watershed that benefits? Downwind, upwind, or whatever, it depends on the,
Upstream, downstream would be
Upstream,
a better
downstream.
analogy than.
right.
But thank you for that.
No, that helps.
clearly I haven't looked at it, my own tile drain in a long time.
Okay. Anything else under the net revenue expenditure summary? You can make any pass. Okay, I'm seeing none.
So let's move into general taxation. So this just highlights what the general taxation for the respective taxation classes that we need to sustain the 2026 operating budget. As council is aware, right now the draft needs a $7,052,130 tax revenue budget.
Yep.
And the main driver and the main weighting is residential at 5.265.
Yeah, and this again was calculated using the notional levy of 5.02.
Correct, your worship.
Thank you. Just to be clear.
If council has no any questions on the general taxation, we can move into other revenues. As you see, OMPF has increased year over year, as outlined in the staff report. Again, thank member MPP Bobby and Brady for that. We went from as low as 815, now we're back to 1,066,000. So thanks to her and the efforts at Roma for all the delegation there. Obviously, we have interest in taxes, interest in prior. We are expecting lower investment income. That is because we sold off a substantial amount of our investments in March of 2025 to pay for Project Ojibwa's debt retirement. And then we have utility transfer money that comes in, and then it automatically goes to the trail reserve. Again, boilerplate stuff we've had for years. The only big thing is we're expecting lower investment income.
Any questions on the other revenues? Okay, moving onward then with general government.
General government on the revenue side, your worship, we're projecting 100,500. The biggest anomaly this year in 2025 is we received 2 one-time rebates from WSIB for rebating part of our premium. That's basically the main driver why we have a larger than normal sundry in the actuals. Outside of that, we're projecting that based on the number of tax certificates we issue, fees and service charges that we book, as well as lottery license, and some of the cost recovery that we get from both tax sales as well as other sundry charges that we're able to levy based on the municipal act. Correspondingly, there's really not much change in the general operating. Your payroll reflections, anyone has a step grid as well as any cost of living adjustments. And the biggest one-time driver here is basically going to be, if council elects, is the use of the transfer to reserve if council decides to use the rate stabilization. That'd be the biggest one-time outlier. It's been a long time since we used a transfer in the budget. And this is where it would be on line item 1010 5400.
Any questions on that schedule?
Council sees none. Moving on to council expenditures for the year. Again, it's election year, so we have money coming out of the election reserve, which we have budgeted for the last 4 years, 60K. Obviously, we have a spike in election expenditures to maintain it, both from advertising, administrative, labor, and other related auxiliary costs, and staff and council's general remuneration, as well as the conferences and seminars. And that's pretty much it. You guys are very flat for the year. And as council's aware, the year over year is 97.8. And if you take away the one time, you guys are going to be within 2 points of that on inflation.
Okay. Just a bit of a typo in your last column.
Is it 2027?
Yeah, it
right?
should be 2027.
I'll make the edit.
Thank you. Any questions on the council schedule? Seeing none. Moving on with bylaw. Fire, sorry.
Projecting about 22,000 in fees and service charges, which is baseline. Those one-off years is when we have huge fire recoveries through insurance or through fire marquee. So they're very hard to budget when we get them. They usually come with a tailwind of expenditures now revenue later. Outside of that, the fire department is basically flat for 2025, other than inflationary on payroll and any utilities.
Lauren, what's the usual lag on any recoveries through fire marquee? 2 years, a year?
Quickest we've seen is 6 months, the latest we've seen is 30 months,
All right, thank you.
and up to 5 to 6 years if it goes to insurance litigation.
Right. Any questions on the fire department budget? Moving on.
Police services, revenue as indicated, the question from the worship. Basically, the POA in the prior years, we've averaged anywhere from 5 to 12. This will be excluding any sort of parking relating to the beach that will be represented separate. By that time, we can't budget until we start seeing how those money come in. Outside of that, we have the service contract. Council can see that our service contract went over a year, 110,000. Prior year, we received an $85,000 rebate. That rebate really masks the reduction, because if you look at it, we went from 949, 958, 965 to $1,074,000. So the rebate really basically masked the increase. Now the rebate's off. Now we have to pay our fair share of policing costs in relation to our population per capita.
If I may, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Froze.
this one really, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. This one gets my goat. And our provincial election gets us a rebate, and the year after they're sitting, they kind of sock it to us. I don't know. I know there's not much we can do about it, but I would like to send a message to whom it may concern, Mr. Ford, I guess. This isn't acceptable, and it's simply not sustainable, in my opinion. It is just not sustainable. We can't keep trying to tighten our budget every which direction to get these increases coming down our throats from our service providers.
Okay, appreciate your comment, Councilor Froze. I think it's one of the baskets of service requirements that the province has required us to fund that needs to be addressed. And I think if we even go back as far as thinking about the ongoing lobby regarding the social responsibility review, readjusting or reimagining, if we will, the financial relationship federally, provincially, municipally, there are shortcomings, and this unfortunately is one of them. I think one of the reasons why that grant was available, that rebate, if you will, last year, was worth $168,000, I believe, to BAM, was because of the 2023-2024 salary adjustments, which municipalities had no input on. It was a provincial government that funded that and that negotiated that. And if you'll recall, private police forces or non-OPP forces didn't get that grant. So I assume that's why we got it. But it doesn't help out for 25 moving forward. So I certainly appreciate your comments, Councilor Froze. You're right on it.
Like, if I may, Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Thank you, through you. What do we get for this $1.1 million? I wish I could really get a breakdown or somebody explain to me, what do we get for it? We get a cruiser once a week, 1 day a week in all of Bayham? I don't know, but it sure doesn't seem like we get that many. And I know we have a lot of calls and emergency cases, which I think they're doing a great job, but we pay for those calls. And I would really like to know what we get for this amount of money.
Maybe it would be a good question to put forward to the detachment board and see if we can get a better breakdown and explanation of what what are the ratepayers of Bayham getting for their investment? Would that be a start, Councillor Froese?
I'd love to send a message.
Well, perhaps can we put a pin in that, and can you make a note of it, Madam Clerk, that towards the end of the discussion, perhaps we want to have a motion to get some clarification on an explanation or breakdown on the costing for police services in Bayham. If that's okay with you, Councillor Froese?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Alrighty. Anything else on the police services budget?
Mr. Mayor, just a comment.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe I can just quickly cover some of the questions that Councillor Froese had. So when we get the billing statement every year, it usually comes into myself and the treasurer. It breaks down the proposed billing statement based upon a few different financial components. So there's a base service cost that is property based. And the cost per property is the same across the entire province, as far as I know. So it would be $203.05 a property. So we're billed based on that. What services we get is something that we can look into for that, but that is the base service cost that applies to everybody. The other major component is the calls for service component, and that is based upon a percentage of the total calls for service received by the OPP across the province for the year. That number of total calls for service is divided by the approximate amount of time that go into the calls for service for Bayham. So we are our municipal portion is 0.21% of the overall calls for service in the province. And we pay a cost per property multiplier on that of approximately $153 a property. So based upon those, we're already over $1 million. The other costs are relatively small. They're overtime, prisoner transport, accommodation, that sort of thing. And ultimately, what it came out to for us for 2026 is $1,074,177, which is what is in the budget. So we can provide some correspondence seeking what sort of services are captured within, say, the base and the calls for service. But that is the calculation that we receive on an annual basis.
Well, thank you for that, Thomas. I'm thinking that perhaps even if we could get a little more research, is our proportionate use or call out trending upwards, or is it stable? Is it falling? Some of that information might be useful. Councillor Froese?
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. To Thomas Yeo. Do you know where our multiplier is at compared to like Malahide? We're pretty close in population to Malahide.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, I do not have that information. We don't generally discuss, the intricacies of OPP billing within the municipalities. We did a little bit last year because the increase before the rebate came as such a surprise. This year, we knew it was coming because that was what was communicated by the province when we got the rebate last year. So discussion hasn't been had at the Elgin County level in regards to what each of the municipalities is seeing from a policing increase.
Lauren, please.
Just a follow-up comment to that. So both myself and the mayor were incorrect. We received a 10% discount on the 2025 estimate, which was $108,943. And then we also received a one-time credit for the 2023 year-end adjustment of 12. So last year was 121,000 they gave us. I'm looking at the two billing models right now, Councillor Froese. And if you give me a second, I can kind of give you an idea of base to service and how much our run-up is if you'd like that. But other than getting deep into the billing model and looking at call by call and types of calls and how many officers, it can get really convoluted.
Yeah, I'm okay for now. I just think if we don't start telling these people that it's not okay to get these kind of increases, I think then we're not doing our jobs.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor
Just-
Simpson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question. I often wonder, because there is in the county and there is nearby that have their own police officers. Just wonder what the cost extra, the costs there is between having a police officer or two or whatever to cover the hours and not getting billed from the OPP.
Well, that study was done.
We did a review on that a few years ago, and that was regarding with the town of Elmer. And that would have been predicated with the township of Malahide being on board with it as well, because we're not contiguous to Elmer. Not that the process itself fell apart because Malahide had discovered that the cost was higher than what they were prepared to move forward with. But I think that's the overall messaging. For us to accommodate that, there's a bit of an investment, kind of like a transfer station. There's a big investment. to
Well,
get
that's
there.
true, but
Yeah.
that was before the billings increase and
Yeah.
the revision, so maybe we should revisit that as a kind of a statement saying that maybe the fees, the OPP charges are out of line compared to providing your own policing services. Just thought.
Fair enough. Lauren,
One other thing to factor in for council to chew on is 45,000 of our year-over-year increase is because we had 27 new domicile houses. That's why. Our population for number of total properties increased. And
okay,
if you go back and look at the number of new stuff, that's what also generates the baseline.
thank you.
Well, then at some point, then the amount of domiciles or properties that increases, that fixed cost, that might overcome the fixed cost of having our own amalgamation with the Elmer or somebody else like that.
Thomas.
I don't know. I just.
Mr. Mayor, I know there was a question about how we compare to other municipalities and how our, portion has trended over time. So I dove back in some of our historic billing here to give you an idea of what our statements were. So for 2026, our multiplier is 0.2086. For 2023, it was 0.2299. So we're down from that point. For 2025, it was a little over 0.22 as well. It was 0.2238. So we've actually trended down for our municipal portion. Where we get impact is because the formula is based upon the total number of calls for service across all municipalities in Ontario. 2023 total municipal calls for service were 178 million and change. The formula for 2026 is based on 217 million. So when other municipalities have significantly more calls for service and it drags up that total, it doesn't matter if our portion decreases a little bit, which it has, which demonstrates that, we're being more efficient with use. We're being impacted by the rest of the province. And yes, to the mayor's comment earlier, that means the funding model to some degree, especially when, we're looking at our numbers, is broken. It needs to be taken a look at because we are being impacted by what's happening elsewhere. That should give some context that we are not overusing the calls for service system. We are being impacted by other municipalities.
Well, that is actually just another reason why we should explore it, because our fixed cost, our variable cost is influenced by other communities that may or may not have more homeless issues or anything like that. I don't know why we would fight taking another look at it.
Not fighting it, not at all.
No, I'm just saying.
Just saying intuitively, the experience in the past was that the cheaper model was with the OPP. Now, the only, I think, opportunity for even reducing, perhaps maybe reduction in level of service, and I don't even know if that's available to us. That's up for the attachment board to have that discussion, which goes back to original idea of towards the end, let's put some direction for staff together to approach the attachment board and find out what are our options. What can we do?
Like also, your worship in council could be a situation where council directs staff to write corresponding letters to the billing associations looking at urban versus rural split on usage.
Well, that may be too. So that's another component that we can put into it.
Like some communities might have more severe items than we would do traditionally. That it all factors in on cost, support, and that. So that could be I believe that the billing funding model and the billing out model is the flaw.
Yeah, I agree.
The per
Couldn't
capita-
agree more.
And the per capita is the household. If we have population growth, then we have to pay because we're gonna need more police to support the population.
Well,
Deputy Mayor.
yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just a comment, because when you look at the breakdown, when you look at your base service, which is Ontario based, we're at 203 a property, but total calls per service for Bayham, we're looking at 153 per property. So yeah, it's right there in black and white, but there's a disconnect between the rural versus urban, which I totally 100% agree. This system is completely broken. So yeah, for sure. I think we should look into it.
Not a problem.
But again, we've had good efforts before in the past on lobbying when we had OMPF. So this could be another situation where we work, write letters, get other municipalities to support us, and maybe there can be groundswell for changing of the billing model for urban versus rural.
Mm-hmm.
And I would argue that this is a local municipal partner issue, not an upper tier.
Right.
We are the contractor. Or a contractee, one or the other. But still, the point being, we're the ones who ask for the service.
Well.
Something that we're gonna have to keep in mind though, because, and we need to dig into this, those independent services out there, if they call in for assistance from the OPP for their expertise, for investigations, whatever else, is there an additional bill to those municipalities? I don't know. For us under the OPP model, there is not. But that's something that we need to dig into. Anyway, we've spent
Yeah.
a lot of time on
No.
this. Can we move on?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Conservation Authority.
Pretty well, it has the CA's draft budget as well as the existing tree program.
Yeah.
That's it.
Any questions on that? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question to staff about the tree program, if I could, because I did have quite a bit of community feedback in regards to the program this year, that a lot of the trees were not usable, or they were not good. Did we have a different contractor this year?
Through your worship. No,
Okay.
trees came from the same location as they come from the last few years. I never received any feedback by anybody, so
Okay.
I'm not sure what the issue was and why they couldn't be used. We planted 40 within our parks and roadside. So it's too early to tell. It was a fall program. There's
Mhm.
no leaves on them. And hopefully in the springtime, they'll have leaves.
Okay.
That's all I can really say on that one.
Okay.
Steve, typically, in the past, we ran that program in the spring. Is there, I mean, we'll find out in the spring whether the fall planting was as good or better than the spring
Right.
one.
I think the reason we did that was because we were late last year on so we pushed it so it wasn't running into the dry spell of the summer.
Right.
Talking to the provider on that, they recommend either or. The problem with the winter time is if with the heavy snowfalls, and animals could, so. As of right now, we're planning on running it in the springtime
Okay.
if
Oh,
the
okay.
budget continues, so it will be going out early or late winter here.
Just went late this year because of when the operating budget was ultimately.
That's right.
We didn't know if we were gonna have.
Right.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much for that. Building services?
Your worship and council building departments as presented, 195. Actuals year to date for 11 months trailing is 176. Just so council is aware, we ended up being just a shade under 196 for calendar 2025. I know that because I had to provide the CBO the number today so he could do his report for end of year. So we're right in line. We actually had a good second half. So the economy locally picked up for construction, so that was positive. We have a little bit of cost recovery sundry, and we have the corresponding staff support time that supports billing department, our physical services clerk shared, and then our billing with our service partner Malahide.
All right, any questions on this?
And just so council is aware, if the building department operates a profit, it has to be reserved. If it operates a loss, it can be funded out of the building reserve.
All right,
That's why it's a net zero department.
all right, fair enough.
Moving on to bylaw enforcement. Basically, the main revenue driver is sundry, which is our officer build out to Malahide at the cost recovery model, corresponding wages, and the corresponding expenditures to run the bylaw. That billing has been done quarterly with Malahide, just like they do our share billing quarterly as well. And that's based on a usage. So whatever they use, we bill. Whatever we use for the CBO, we bill. So it's a pay-as-you-go model.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on bylaw?
And just so council's aware, the year-to-date for Malahide billing was just a shade under 143, or just a shade under 43. So we're right in line what we anticipate with 46 being 43 this year.
Mhm.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, just a clarification question.
Yes, go ahead, Counselor.
What are we spending thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. What are we spending $3,000 or $3,500 on training and education under bylaw?
That has to do with multiple training and compliance for the bylaw officer. That also supports property compliance, building compliance, as well as assisting the clerk's office with any sort of paralegal assistance as well.
Compliance is different than training, correct?
It's additional coursework. It'd be no different in other departments that have training development.
Okay. Additional questions? All right. Moving onward, Public Works.
Public Works budget as presented, your worship and council. Grants and sundries is basically the road maintenance agreement that we have with the county. That funding model goes up by CPI. CPI for 2026 is 2.2. The other sundry is cost recovery and special work that we get billed, either that we do for a county of Elgin or our mutual shared partners, both in Oxford, Norfolk, as well as any relating partners along Elgin. And then additionally, if we have any oversized permits or other sundry that we collect. As council can see, we're right around 529 for the year, 622 is the budget. And this year we land right around 610,000. So we're in line based on that as well as inflation. Basically, Public Works is a flat budget. It factors in the collective agreements with the CUPE as well as COLA, a little bit of fuel adjustments as well as utility, but it's a pretty well flat budget. Biggest driver here that's not present in the prior years, we're not anticipating having drainage assessment, drainage materials this year. Currently, according to conversations with the drainage superintendent, we don't have any drains on the books. That would add a large municipal road portion that we would have to pick up. That it sometimes happens as an outlier, and then we budget the following year after we know a drainage has been petitioned.
Just a question for the drainage superintendent. Rumors had it that some work need to be done in the Little Jerry. When's that scheduled?
Through you, your worship, once again, this hasn't come to my attention.
Oh, interesting.
I would ask anybody that has questions or concerns about the drains, definitely to send something in.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The fuel line 5180, it is down projected this year like by 40,000. Is that?
Doable.
Your worship, Deputy Mayor, I'm not going to say what the president down south says about oil, but it appears based on market trends, there's going to be an extreme glut of oil, which will likely bring the price of crude as well as diesel down. If Councilor recalls, less than 2 years ago, it was almost $2.25 for a liter of diesel. So the spike has come down. The other thing too is our fleet in Public Works is getting newer and our utilization is getting better, which also means that burning less. Now, Obviously, we have larger winter events, we burn more. But this is just to reflect the current anticipated market pricing.
Okay.
And just so council is aware, we are still in the LAS program with the fuel racking program. That has been a boon that we entered that in 2014. So that's a group of 425 municipalities throughout Canada that buys fuel through Imperial Oil. And it's delivered locally by Dollar Carn.
Okay,
Thank you for that.
additional questions on Public Works?
Councilor Fred's got one.
No, Council Froze.
Hey, delivered by Dollar Carn, maybe, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Delivering by Dollar Carn, we
Well,
have recently found out on the farm that, FS Partners is delivering for about 15 cents a liter cheaper. And we are switching in droves.
I think the manager of Public Works took note of that. And we'll be looking into that. Are we committed through the LAS program for a certain time frame?
We're only committed to continually buying it through the partner. We could do a fuel review.
Steve?
Just to add to that, through your worship, I also, right now, the city of London and the London Buying Group has our fuel quantities in place. They are going to tender, so we're gonna be on that as well.
Okay,
As an option if LAS is not cheaper then. So currently we have one other company, but FS, yeah, we can definitely look into it. Otherwise, I don't know if they're part of the buying group. Chances are it'll go to tender and through London's buying group, and we'll see.
thank you very much for being on top of that, Steve. And thank you for bringing that to our attention, Councilor Frost. Any other questions on Public Works? Comments? Moving onwards.
Moving over to winter control, the sundry relates to billing out for cost share of salt,
Mhm.
as well as our annual billing to Norfolk for maintaining the, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, 1.9 kilometers for Highway 19. Does that sound about right? Sure. We maintain a portion of 19 that we bill back Norfolk County.
Okay,
Other than that, the rest is all cost inflation.
okay, our service contract obviously is under this particular budget.
Correct, your worship.
Okay, any questions?
Just a comment.
Yep,
Yeah,
Deputy
thank-
Mayor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a comment, because I know we were kind of hoping that salt budget would decrease a little bit, but it doesn't look like it, eh?
Hmm.
Oh, my.
That's why we still have that winter control reserve there for the real bad winter, Deputy Mayor.
That's right. Yeah. It's too bad.
Moving on to the next one.
One question, how do we negotiate that service contract fee? Can we just pick a number like the OPP and send the bill? Or like
Steve?
Long Point or whatever?
No, that service contract, Steve, is it's by tender.
Yeah, through your worship, you're talking about the snow removal?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
whatever.
material?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just,
The
we,
snow removal for our urban streets that we're currently on with Wilson's, that will be ending this will be the last year.
no, I was talking about Highway 19.
Oh, that's through a boundary agreement that we do have with Norfolk.
Yeah, but how do we determine what the bill is?
That's correct. It's based off,
County's funding model for the corner we maintain.
So we can't charge more if we need to, but everybody else can charge us more if they need to? Is that how that works?
oh, good.
That's a good question.
Can we just
No,
send them
absolutely.
a bill with
And they can do the
increase
same
in-
to us. That's right. They can charge us for the road they maintain. That we share boundary with. And absolutely, it can go both ways on that.
Okay, good point.
It's a good
Thank you.
point. Yeah,
Good
that's a
point.
great point,
Thank you.
Tim.
But we should just copy everybody else's example.
Which is why we use the county's funding model for the RMA for that Norfolk section we maintain. We have that consistently.
Mhm.
Into streetlights.
Well, this shouldn't be a real bright topic, eh? Two line items, maintenance and utilities. That's it. We don't have any money in here for brand new installation.
Hmm.
We're working on something, the budget's coming up for streetlight assessment. But we're not in this year's budget cycle. Not in this year's budget cycle.
Deputy Mayor,
Yes, just a typo there. Your 2020,
another 27.
just the 2027 for the
That
end.
awkward +1.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Wastewater?
So pretty well, it represents our water and our wastewater study that we did last year. Based on the number of houses we have, both on the flat usage fee. Obviously, we still have some auxiliary revenues that come in, sundry charges, and connection charges. The council is aware there is no more new landowner debenture charges. That actually goes to the development charges, which was implemented back in 22. A little bit of penalties, and then obviously we have labor to support the one supervisor position that we're still recruiting for. And our corresponding costs moving over to Aqua. Some auxiliary costs stay with us that's not picked up through the Aqua contract.
Right. So after the transition, you're going to see the salary and wages level back down to where it should be.
Correct, your worship.
Thank you. Questions? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I just found it interesting, the odor control and system maintenance, is that part of Aqua now? Is that why it's removed from the budget?
It's part of the Aqua quoted rate.
Okay, so it's included in there.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Part of the, okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Ready for some water?
Wastewater? Sure.
Moving over to the BAM water system, again, revenue set based on our water wastewater rate study. Really similar, some transitionary expenses, some expenses that we still maintain. And then obviously some expenses have been removed because now they're part of the Aqua agreement.
Mhm.
We still are buying from the primary and secondary water boards.
Yeah.
Outside of that, we are anticipating the first 2 years of transition of having a negative reserve transfer. Again, these are projections. In the past, we've sometimes exceeded the budgeted transfers. A lot of it really depends on loss, breakage, system expenses, and sometimes hot and cold too as well.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Richmond Water.
Again, we're revenues based on the water wastewater rates and fee study that done last year. Some auxiliary wages to support the department through Aqua, and then the general Aqua expenses and some of the utilities and base expenses that are not part of the Aqua agreement. And then obviously we continue to still have source water protection.
Yeah.
As it comes about.
Any questions for Richmond Water? Waste Management.
Moving over to trash, bag tags for the year, large item, big curb still there. Our waste disposal, and then some additional money in the public space recycling. Pretty much status quo. We have, Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong, we have 2 more years with our existing provider on the current contract.
For waste, no, our current contract goes through 2030.
Thank you.
with 2 years that we could mutually extend.
Deputy, or excuse me, Counselor Frost. Almost gave him a promotion.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. We were supposed to save some money with being able to use old tags. Is that in here somewhere, or is that too minute to notice?
It would be very nominal, the rollover of the 25 tags that can be used for 26. They had a 25 had a value of $2. The new ones have a value of $3 or $2.50, sorry, $2.50. And they can still be used at 25 there, so the nominal impact is small. Basically, the big thing is when 2 years ago, when the program started to notice it, was the average residents were increasing the weight per bag. They're having heavier bags at the curve. And that's what we found when we're doing our data calls a number of years back. That
Okay.
users were trying to get closer to the max they can have per bag.
Thank you for that, Lauren. Still, it's not surpassing the maximum that you're aware of. Okay. Cemeteries.
Not much going on in cemeteries, kind of a quiet department. Ground maintenance and just our general inactive cemetery. The only thing I caution the council is, depending how bad we have some of the storms, eventually we could get caught with trees in some of our inactive cemeteries and be caught 1 year. So just an item to be cognizant of that. Staff are trying to identify in the spring and the fall trees that need to be cut or tree lines that need to be cleaned up in the inactive. And it's also a recommendation to the cemetery boards to continue to look at their trees and their row lines to make sure they're in good standing.
It appears that we have not used the inactive cemetery improvement fund for some time.
Correct, your worship.
Okay. Waiting for someone to identify some problems that need to be.
Sometimes we have problems by trees in cemeteries that don't have care and maintenance.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's in cemeteries that have wind damage from headstones or old fence lines that need to have work done, or drainage issues too.
Right, okay. Any questions on cemeteries? Just for interest sake, how many cemeteries we got across the municipality? That the municipality is responsible for?
I can't remember off the top of my head of the BAO filing, your worship. But if my memory serves me right, it's either 24 or 25 that's on our filing.
Yeah.
Of that, only 6 have a real board.
Yeah.
The rest, we have 5 that we manage internally, and all the rest are inactive, and we are the caretakers of the inactive, even though there's no active internment occurring.
Just one. to put
And
that
spread out through the entire municipality, north, south, east, and west.
Absolutely, I just wanted to put that out there, just, you know, it's a bigger program, you think. Moving on then with municipal assistance.
Status quo for the funding allotment for the department for the year, 9,000. I'll let the Madam Clerk and CAO speak to when they can start making application.
Through your worship, pending council approval tonight, applications are already open with the notification to let them know that it is pending this approval. And then the first intake will be brought to you at the second meeting of February, I believe.
Thank you. Any questions on the municipal assistance? All right, seeing none, thank you. Parks,
Parks and Recs has one of the Public Works students time in here for the grant. One of the Public Works students, as well as support from Public Works for a couple of the operators in the department. And then we have our grounds maintenance, which includes grass cutting, cleanup, porta potty rentals, all the other related costs. Our biggest one here is the placeholder is really insurance. It represents 25% of the park's expenditure. And that's just for our general liability of how many parks we have.
Okay. Any questions?
And just so council's aware, last year you guys wanted $5,000 for trees for shading. That was a one-time project, 25.
Thank
It
you.
is not back in the 26, as I highlighted it with the nice red ink on the sheet.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Froze?
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I just can't help but noticing another increase by service provider. That's all I got to say.
Our service provider. Would that be the grass cutter?
That's next contract.
Yeah.
And we're down 5,000.
Insurance.
Oh, insurance.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Mhm,
Sorry. Okay,
mhm.
noted.
Strathfield Community Center, lower anticipated rentals because of currently the construction project going on above. And just traditional expenditures to keep it warm and idled until we have the reopening in the fall. For the hall.
Okay. Any observations or questions on this one?
The only takeaway for council is the last 2 years, the hall has done well on rentals. They've doubled the previous 2 years prior, 27,000 and 24,000. They have increased utilization. No. And we've had better maintenance and better wear and tear upstairs than prior years.
Thank you. Seeing none? Libraries?
Library is funded by the county. It's set based on the funding agreement. Indexes every year at CPI, which is 2.2. Beyond that, we cover utilities, building maintenance, grounds maintenance, insurance. And at year end, we have our transfer, which goes into our facility reserve. And recently, councilors, where we did the elevator a number of years back. There is no current capital for the library in the upcoming year's budget. So that transfer goes back in facility reserve to fund the general facility reserve portfolio.
Thank you. Okay, I'm seeing no questions on that. Moving on with museums.
Museums, pretty straightforward. Grants are the grant applications that we file through YCW as well as the Canadian Museum Association and through the CSJ. We've already done one application with another one that we're going to do next week. We're going to be applying for 3 students. It's been successful. In the prior years, as you guys can see, we've averaged anywhere between 7,800 to up to 25,000 for the grants. Mission stays static. Children's programs really small. And then salaries across is just based on Ontario minimum wage for their students. And then we have our caretaker, which is part-time. And no, staff is not recommending to close the museum.
Thank you. Any questions on the museum? Moving into development services.
So it's kind of a transitional year for development services. We're transitioning from staff support in here to the county planning model. So there's going to be some auxiliary expenditures. Most of the revenues are set based on our rates and fee schedule and what we anticipate for activity. So there's a little bit of anomaly in the expenditure line, both in a little bit higher in wages and a little bit higher in consulting. Beyond that, that is a 1-year transitionary. When we get to the 27 billing cycle and expenditure cycle, we'll have a more baseline to set our budgetary target towards.
Questions from anyone? Tourism.
Tourism side, your worship, personalized beach revenue, beach park represents the current accepted beach report the council passed for the parking, as well as the additional auxiliary costs that are being passed through at the point of sale to the individuals renting parking spots, and then are reduced. This unfortunately this past year, For the upcoming year, we have a reduction of $3,500 for our beach rental, so that's been reflected in the current contract. And the corresponding wages to support both our part-time bylaw enforcement officer parking down there and any relating beautification. And then a projected transfer for 65,000 with our projected honk fees, which is grossed up in the revenue line and also in the expenditure line of 11,535. So after honk, we anticipate to do 120 in net revenues.
All right. Okay. Any questions? Drainage?
There shouldn't be too much water on this file. Our grants is set based on the OMAFRA. As council is aware, OMAFRA has set a cap. Bad news for council is right now our prior 2-year submissions are still in review from OMAFRA. Just so council kind of have a historical, OMAFRA only gets so much money from the province.
Yeah.
When they're funding envelope, both from the supervisory grant is allotted, as well as the operating grants and capital, it goes to the next year. So Steve and I are working with the representative out of Guelph the next couple of days to see where our application is on collecting that money. And then obviously we'll be submitting the previous year's superintendent grant, as well as anticipating this year's time. Steve tracks his time so we can have identified breakdown in case in the event that we're audited by OMAFRA for our superintendent's time. Other than that, it's just mostly expenditures relate to it and a little bit of conferences and seminars to keep our drainage superintendent up to date on standards. Or if one of the physical service clerks goes for a workday conference on the Drainage Assessment Act, which myself and the previous deputy clerk and one of the physical services clerk has done before in the past. So that way we can help with billing as well as the drainage court meetings as well.
Just the typo at the end,
+1.
+1.
All right, any other questions on drainage? It's a dry subject.
It's drier the better.
Which brings us to.
And 38, which is basically our capital control bylaw. I really want to take a few minutes and I want to talk about this with council. I've also got some historical stuff I want to share with council so we can really know what our roadmap is and where we've come and how we got here and what are kind of our forward looking and also sort of what happened in the rear view. So right now for 2026, and yes, I know 26 should say +1 next column, deputy mayor, so +1 there. That's tonight's
Yeah,
joke, +1.
Thank you.
So our net capital for public works and our net capital is 2.5. Next year, we're gonna be 3.8. The next council, whether it's this council or the next council coming after election, has a lot of work. And I'm gonna explain really what transpired over the last 10 years. In 2014, when I first came on as your treasurer, we had a tax base of 3.2 million. And what represented was the 22.6 of that tax was capital. Unfortunately, in 2015, Project Ojibwe happened. We went to a 3.6 MACE tax base, and our percentage of capital to the levy went down to 16.25. We've already cut a third. Well, here's the problem though. In 2016, our tax levy went to 3.8. We went down to 7.5% of our capital to tax levy. It cratered. Capital doesn't forgive us if we don't fund it. Capital doesn't forgive us if we defer it. Capital costs even more than inflation if we defer it. There's a difference between construction price index and consumer price index. Sometimes construction price index is 5 times greater than consumer price index. Now we start going back up in 2017, we had a 3.9 base, 10.6. In 2018, 4.1 million to 13%. 2019, 4.4 million tax base, went back up to 15.9. 2020, we had a 4.8 million tax base. We got back to 20.5. We're making headway. And then inflation came, COVID came, and aggressive construction price spikes happened. And a project like the stormwater that went originally from a draft of 17 to 19 million of council members ballooned to 40, maybe 45 million today. And it just widens our AMP deficiency further and further. We get to 2021, we have a 5.1 million tax base. Capital supported 30% of the tax. Move to 2022, 5.2 million, 32% of that was for capital. 2023, 5.7 million tax base, 24% of that was supported by capital. 2024, 6.3 million tax base, 24% of that was supported by capital. 2025, 6.7, 20%. We went down because we needed to get rid of the debt, Project Ojibwe off our books. Because we need real debt for core infrastructure, for things on the horizon, stormwater, water line, new wastewater, water capacity constraints, infrastructure that supports our community, infrastructure that moves our people, and infrastructure that helps support jobs and helps support families.
What's 2026 as a
In
percent?
2026, if we stay with the current draft model, $7 million budget, tonight we're at a 36% of our tax levy supports capital. And so the councils also should be aware that we are only half a year behind in OSIF and half a year behind in gas tax. So we're using every dollar we get federally and provincially as well. We now have a ball rolling down the road of capital infrastructure that we're probably staring a 40% handle of our tax levy every year just to keep it moving.
Yeah.
Not getting ahead of it, just to keep it moving. Well, the truth is, over the last 10 years, we had $8.5 million to service Project Ojibwe. Some residents don't want to hear it, but I'm the treasurer who signed the debt. And I think it's still valid to hear. That didn't help in our capital. That killed our capital. As I just told you, we crushed our capital and slowly brought it back up. Imagine what 8.5 would have done in 2015 to our capital. We probably would have the stormwater program close to being finished. Things are different. So as much as we all want to have low taxes, we also did 10 years of deferred maintenance, capital deferrals, asking department heads to go with less, asking equipment to last longer, asking bridge and culverts to go past their best before life. Now we have to build back. And that's my message to council and anyone who's watching home and wants to be a councillor. There's a lot of work in the 25 year of the AMP.
All right, thank you very much for your comments, Lauren, and the brief recap on where we've been and where we're heading. Certainly appreciate it. That brings us to the end of your presentation. All right, we have a few things to consider here, but if anyone is perhaps like me, I would appreciate about a 5-minute comfort break. So let's recess. Welcome back. We have just finished going through the budget presentation. Now it's time for some discussion. Lauren and staff, any suggestions on what we can or can't do moving forward with the current rate set at 3.02?
Correct. Before we do that, I have one recommendation to council. Coming up in the next quarterly report for the year end for 2015, two things I'm gonna add so that way council can kind of see the health of the community. I'm gonna put our tax arrears at each of the end of the quarters to see how we're trending quarter to quarter, so that way you guys can know if there's some affordability or other issues in the community. I think that's important. And I'm gonna also do that for our water wastewater accounts receivable as well, so that way you guys can see that on a historical basis, just to add that to a level to kind of, get more information on a timely basis for you guys, because I think you guys knowing how much the community can afford is important. Staff recommendation tonight, if council is looking to provide tax levy relief, would be to use the contingency reserve for 73,210, which would bring the tax rate impact year over year to 2%, factoring that we already have new assessment growth of 1.9.
Are you talking about the rate stabilization reserve?
Correct, your worship.
Thank you. All right, any discussion on that from council members? Yes, Thomas, please.
Just a quick comment to follow the treasurers. This is something that council has done before. So it has happened in 2019, 2020, and I believe 2021 with the guarantorship loan reserve. In those years, $100,000 was allocated. And I believe in those years as well, council used that $100,000 to decrease the notional levy at the time and then repurpose the year-end surplus. So this is something that we have done in the past and that has worked. The risk will identify that if you are taking the money out of reserve and using it to underwrite the levy, there's no guarantee we have a surplus next year. So there's no guarantee we can put that money back. But if the goal is to decrease the levy impact and the rate impact to existing ratepayers for 2026, then there is some money available in that reserve.
And that would have no impact on our capital AMP as well as our capital reserve accounts, which we need in future years.
Please remind us through you, Mr. Mayor, how much is in that rate stabilization fund?
Yes. If you got that, Lauren, I've got a rough figure if you don't.
It doesn't have to be exact.
I'm pulling it up, your worship.
I believe the 2025 audited was a shade over 140,000. But the treasurer will confirm.
$147,080 is the 2025 projected closing value. There's also another 15,000 in this year's capital budget going in. So in theory, there would be $162,080.
That 15,000 has already been allocated.
That would be money that's already been approved in principle in the 2026 capital.
To go back.
To go back into the, okay, I see what you're getting at. All right. Thank you for that. So if we took the advice and removed 73,000,
210.
that would still leave something there should some unforeseen event come along to give us something.
Just a shade under less than 90,000.
All right.
And that, through you, Mr. Mayor, impacts the increase by how much? It reduces it to what?
2% flat.
Lauren's doing the calculation right now, but I believe it's roughly 2%.
It brings it down 1.125% on the tax levy and it makes the year-over-year increase for a residential house go to $40.82 versus the staff report, which had an impact of $62.66 on a 250 house. It brings the impact on a farm down to $15.02. It brings the impact down on commercial, 250 assessed to $66.85. And it brings the impact on industrial down to $90.83.
All right.
It effectively brings their impact from the original drop almost down a third.
Okay, I think Councilor Froze has his hand up.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I really like it. I would just like to even increase it to 100,000 to use for now. Give our ratepayers a break. I think it is desperately needed. I do know we sent out a record amount of late notices as far as property taxes and also foreclosure notices. So that's pretty scary business. So I'd like to increase it to 100,000.
That would take us down to roughly 62,000 left in the account.
Just to give Councillor Frozen Council some update, looking at our tax arrears year over year, for the ending of December 31st, 2025, we're $1,040,000. Last year at the same time, Council and Councillor Froze, we were $1,043,000. So through staff's effort, as well as additional letters and working with residents, we were able to bridge the gap at the end of November. I can't tell council it wasn't dire. We had one of our worst end of November arrears numbers since COVID. It was an extremely large number. Yes, there was a number of tax sale registration letters going out to a number of properties. A number of them have come forward and made payment to get them out of that position. There's still a good number that are in that position. But on an aggregate, our arrears is in line to last year at the same time. Our water and sewer is also in line for arrears. Yes, our arrears is up from 23 to 24, almost 30%, but 24 to 25 is in line and comparable. And yes, other municipalities have seen arrears go up. As you recall, when our auditor Rob Foster was here, he also noted that there's been pressures in other communities that he audits, and it's a Southwestern and Ontario issue with currently going on about some affordability, inflation, and other. But to remind council, if you use the full two and something breaks, if we have a deficit this year, it's funded in next year's budget. No matter what.
I like your caution, but let's take some risks.
What's the difference?
Okay, current inflation's 2.1,
2.2,
2.2. If we were to
and staff are
return,
recommending 2% on last year's tax rate, which
Yeah.
is below CPI.
it's below inflation. It's, yeah. It goes back to some concerns I have too about robbing the cupboard too far.
We have a big
I-
AMP, we have a lot of stuff to come.
Yeah. I do appreciate Councillor Froze. I too appreciate your notion. That's N notion. But I would be supportive of staff recommendation of going to a 2% year over year.
So it's 2% on last year's tax rate.
Yes.
And it works out to 3.9 on the tax
Notional.
levy.
No, it,
On the notional tax levy.
you quit that. Tax rate is 2%.
Correct.
Which you said, yes.
Yes, but you said notional levy. That's budget levy. Thank you. Two different things. Thank you.
You did say both.
He did
Well,
clarify it too with
It gets confusing. Sorry. Thoughts from, we know what Councillor Froze is thinking, Councillor Emerson and or Deputy Mayor.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, you know, if property owners are having a tough time, they too can kick the can down the road and catch up later on. So if the property tax increase is too high, we may not see more money,
Yep.
you know? So it is a great job that we did. I'm kind of with Dan. I would be like amenable to splitting the difference, I guess, like between your desires and his, and just kind of negotiate that compromise and move forward. Actually, that's where I sit. I leave to hear what Deputy Mayor has to say.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. To be quite honest, I have reservations about taking more out of the reserves. I think we're taking a big enough risk with the 73,000 coming out. Breaking it down with that 2% flat is $3.40 per month per assessed household. I think, when you're looking at your neighbors, you've got St. Thomas at what, 6%? You've got Tilsonburg at 3.9. You've got Malahide at 3. Like, we've done, considering our pressures, we've done well to keep it under inflation. So I'm comfortable with moving forward at the 2%. And that's where I'll leave it for now.
Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone for their comments. And to me, it's simply a case of that there could be something unexpected coming down the road. And that is without any other resourcing to draw on. If we rob this cupboard down, I'm not sure where the alternative is, unless it's short-term debt, which is something we've tried to avoid. Councilor Froese.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we're splitting hairs here. Let's move on. I guess the risk is with the taxpayers, and they do have unforeseen things coming as well. So let's just move on. This is splitting hairs.
Okay.
I did do the coin, your worship. If council wants to know what, if you met a midpoint, I have the midpoint number. The council wants to hear it. I had calculated about you guys.
What is your midpoint number?
If we did a 1.5 and met it in the middle, we would need a reserve transfer of 107,420.
Just to clarify, Lauren, I'm pretty sure that the discussion was about a middle ground between the 73 and the 100 rather than
Yes.
you're
I just calculated a midpoint.
and-
I can go higher.
yeah, well, you're talking midpoint between say 1% and 2%, right? So I don't think council was interested in even going that high. We're talking more in the 85 or 86 range. If you're talking the midpoint between 73 and 100.
I can recalculate.
All right. Split it right down. If you split it right down the middle, it'd be 81,000 in that account.
If we did a 175 on the tax rate, we would need a reserve transfer of 90,315. That's a 175.
And that would leave approximately 71, 72 in that reserve.
One full point.
Thoughts? It's a compromise.
Can we go one step further and just break that down to
The impact per household?
the impact per
Give-
house? We can just do household if you don't mind.
Give me a second.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
$35.72 on a 250 assessed house. $13.14 on a 250 farm. $58.49 on a 250 commercial. $79.48 on industrial. And I also remind council that the education rates are froze for calendar 26.
Hmm.
So there's no impact on the education rates. And the worship can update council on what the projected county is looking like.
1.3%.
And that would be a 175 on last year's 2025 tax rates.
And this still leaves 71,000 in the reserve.
Including this year's transfer, yes.
All right. Gonna have to wait, John. Okay, what's your wish, council?
It's 2, 8. 2,
You've got some options put on the table.
40, 82,
I would like to move that.
40.
The 1.75?
Yes, sir.
Got a seconder?
I'll second.
Councilor Emerson would second, comments?
So sorry, excuse me, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, just confirming that the remainder balance in the reserve fund, because there's a 15,000 transfer in this year, right? So what would be left in that reserve fund?
Including the transfer, Madam Mayor, Madam Deputy Mayor, it'd be about $71,000. If 90 and change is coming out, plus the reserve transfer this year, we're 71, 72 that's remaining.
So looking at it, okay,
1 point.
you know what, I'm okay with that. Yeah.
That's equivalent to approximately 1 levy point remaining.
All right, again, it's a compromise.
Yeah.
There's a little more risk to the municipality, that's fine. And there's risk to the ratepayer, I give you that, I acknowledge that. Madam Clerk, have you got something there, or Thomas?
The clerk will have it, and the clerk also has what we had previously discussed about sending correspondence to the Elgin OPP Detachment Board as part of the motion. I'll defer to her to read it out.
Okay, for council, you want to deal with both issues in one, or do you want to separate them out? We want,
Let's separate them.
I'm thinking we should separate them out.
Mm.
Keep it cleaner.
So what is it, 90? What?
90,350.
$90,315 used from the rate stabilization reserve.
15 or 50?
15.
1 5. Okay.
So if you just want to do that one on its own right now, then we would have that, well, the reallocation of $90,315 from the rate stabilization reserve to the operating budget to reduce the notional levy by $90,315.
No, I think the clarification was to do the correspondence motion separate from the budget approval motion.
Yes.
Oh, so we're going to the PSD now. Thought we were doing this one right now.
So you can do either or. You can do the motion to approve the budget first, or you can do the motion to direct correspondence first, but
Oh,
there are
gosh.
2 here.
I think,
That's
Yeah.
3 then.
So through your worship, overall, the way I have it structured is I didn't know if there was further conversations because the entire motion would be receive this for information, approve in principle with the following edits. So I didn't know if you wanted all that right now and then break out the police services stuff.
Break out the police services separate, I think.
So we're just gonna approve everything else then?
Is there anything else the council wants to include for consideration in this budget? To be honest with you,
In,
I was gonna say, I think staff have done a tremendous job. This is again, I would describe as a maintenance budget. It's put us back on the road towards rebuilding our capital asset base, which needs to be done desperately. I think it's a compromise by adopting the recommendation and or desires of council to even settle at a 1.5%. Okay. I think there's risk involved on all parties. But if there's anything else council wants included on the operating budget, now's the time. Okay. So
No,
we
I'd
have-
just like to say we kind of come most of the way to committing on people's endurance of paying
Yep.
down the debt of the sub, and it's a
Mhm.
bit of a best we can do for a reward for having patience through that time.
I couldn't agree with you more, Councilor Emerson. You're absolutely right. That's why, when I've talked to other municipal officials out there about saying, geez, I don't know if this is really responsible returning the tax rate so low, but our tax rate increase, but recognizing where we've come from,
Mhm.
others would say to me, it is responsible. But I can't look forward to having this happen again because we've got this municipality is a long road ahead of it. Yeah. But thank you for those comments.
Mhm.
We do have a mover and seconder, but I'll let Megan read the motion.
That report TR 0126 regarding the 2026-2027 operating budget draft be received for information, and that the 2026 operating budget be approved with the following amendments: reallocation of $90,315 from the rate stabilization reserve to the operating budget to reduce the notional levy by $90,315, and that staff be directed to bring forward the 2026 tax rate bylaws.
That has been moved by Councillor Froese and seconded by Councillor Emerson. Still in agreement? Okay, all in favor on that? I'll throw my hand up too. It's unanimous for those present. Thank you. Now, let's talk about what we're gonna do with the policing budget, police services. We've had some conversation before, and I know that Megan has noted down some ideas. I still think that a further in-depth conversation, or at least correspondence to police services, is a good spot to start. What else have you got in there, Megan?
I have a draft motion that says that staff be directed to send correspondence to the Elgin OPP Detachment Board requesting further information on the current suite of services provided under the base funding model, options for reducing these costs, opportunity to revisit the calls for service costing formula, and joint advocacy opportunities on behalf of Elgin lower tiers to the Ministry of the Solicitor General.
I like it.
Apologies. Last sentence again, if you would, Megan?
And joint advocacy opportunities on behalf of Elgin lower tiers to the Ministry of the Solicitor General.
To me, I think it's a piece of the overall
Yeah.
advocacy act that needs to go forward on the social responsibility plan.
Mhm.
But
This part of that going to include asking for support from other municipalities? If
that would.
it comes at a later date, and can we add a paragraph to just have a couple comparable models to price against?
Absolutely.
Just curious.
Thomas?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't think that would be part of this motion. This is specifically for correspondence. If council ultimately wants to look into a different type of policing model, then we need a separate motion for that.
I just want
I-
the comparative. I'm not
Yeah.
saying we want to do it or anything, but I think maybe times are different than the last time we
No.
looked at it.
Yes, and we have looked at this a couple of times over the last 10 years or so, and it hasn't been something that's been viable, but we can bring back that information if council is interested in it.
What kind of effort would it take to update the data?
I would have to go back through the previous CAO's reports and determine what would be necessary. I can't comment on that right now.
How about if we ask staff to investigate?
Well, investigate, I don't know, you should initiate the process at the very least.
I would suggest investigate.
Can you add,
That's
another
a separate
clause?
motion,
Yes.
right?
Well, I think it could be included in. It's just a separate paragraph.
Okay.
Investigate.
Investigate. Alternative
Instigate.
policing models.
Yeah, I think that's a good. Mhm.
Initiate, investigate, and instigate.
Mhm.
That's the big eyes.
Okay. So that staff be directed to send correspondence to the Elgin OPP Detachment Board requesting further information on the current suite of services provided under the base funding model, options for reducing these costs, opportunity to revisit the calls for service costing formula, and joint advocacy opportunities on behalf of Elgin lower tiers to the Ministry of the Solicitor General, and that staff be directed to investigate alternative policing models.
Should we include, chair our advisory committee person or whatever?
That's the Elgin,
Okay.
Police or Detachment Board.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They've changed them. They've
Name.
changed the name.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor?
I will move.
I'll second.
Fantastic. Seconded by Councillor Emerson. All in favor? That is carried. Good. Anything else? Okay, it's a good stroke of business for tonight. All right. Let's move on then. We have the confirming bylaw. I need a mover and seconder that confirming bylaw 2026-001 be read first and second and third time and finally passed. Councillor Emerson will move, Deputy Mayor Weiser will second. All in favor? That is carried. I do look forward to 007. And we brings us to the adjournment motion that council do 8:22. Council meeting be adjourned at 8:22. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Froese was up and Councillor Emerson seconds. All in favor? Carried. We are adjourned.